We're talking about the tech-led transformation of the creative industries. I'd like to introduce the speakers on sitting on either side of me. There's Sharad from Virtual Presence, Lyric Jen from Logically, Barry, just wave out, Barry from Kycker. I have Vivek from Mahindra and Mahindra, Clemens from VTime, and Natasha from Timblr. So thanks very much, everyone, for being here. I'll start off with Vivek. We're talking about, each of you had a transformational idea that led you to adapt a new technology. Could you tell us a bit about your journey here and what led you to use this technology? So starting off with Vivek, please.
So I'm sharing with you something we did for Mahindra Racing. So as some of you may know, Mahindra Racing is one of the competitors in the Formula E racing. And the problem that we were trying to solve is that, when there's a race that happens, obviously there are maybe 20, 30, 40,000 people who are at the race and they enjoy the race. There are people who watch the race on their television screens or online or whatever. But we said, how can we bring the race to millions of fans across the world in a way that would be very engaging and very immersive? And that's why we created a 360-degree video using VR, using Google's Jump Cam. And this was a collaboration between us, Gul Panag, who has a production house, and she also anchored the video, and Google Daydream. Before I say more, I think it's best to show the video so that people have an idea.
Could we have the first Mahindra video, please?
So that sort of gives you an idea of what was done, and I think we were very happy with the results because we created a piece of content which was very immersive for the fans, brought a lot of engagement, and was able to cut through the clutter.
Thanks for sharing that, Vivek. Really interesting use of technology for creating a new sort of experience for consumers. And Natasha, you've done the same at Timblr for an automobile company. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah,
and how you got here actually as well?
So we developed an immersive experience around data storytelling for this electric vehicle company called Aether Energy. And it was an amazing experience working with them and stitching the story around data using algorithm and design techniques. And yeah, I mean, bringing that story alive through real time interactive technology was quite a challenge and a fun experience.
And where is this experience zone? If people wanted to go and try it
This
out.
is in Bangalore, in Indranagar.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so over there.
And you have a video to show as well?
Yeah, I have a
Can
demonstration
we
of that,
see the time blur video, please?
so that's the experience center that we made for Ather Energy. And these are the other shots about our projects that we've done so far. So we work a lot with motion tracking and computer graphics, and blending that to tell stories. This is another signature that we made. I mean, this is every rider would get a unique signature as he walks into the store. So we're applying computer vision to develop sculptures and to develop visualization by using technologies like computer vision or image processing. So it's a blend between technology or new media technology and design.
So lots of emphasis on sort of the aesthetics
Yes.
of what you're creating using
Yes,
technology.
and also like total immersion, which
Yeah.
is involving all your senses. So we work a lot with audio and video, and they're all real-time generated using users' data, with whether it is the electric vehicles data when he's on the ride, and when he comes back, he actually gets to get a unique signature. So every person has a signature which is different, and so that stands out. And he could be sharing that with his friends and family over mails and over social media.
Talking about sharing experiences on social media, Clemens, you've taken the immersive experience social as well. Did I catch you by surprise there?
Yes, sorry.
How did that happen? Tell us a bit about VTime.
Okay, so VTime is an AR VR company. We're based in Liverpool, in England, and we decided to use immersive technologies to really fundamentally change and improve how people can communicate and engage with each other using communication software. So we released a VR application into the market about 3 years ago, which we've been updating and maintaining ever since that time. That's available in 190 countries around the world. It's almost approaching 1 million downloads, and it's really told us a lot about just how different user behavior is when it comes to immersive technologies. And the application that's available now on all the various app stores allows people to also share media with each other. So it's whether it's 2D photographs or 360 photographs. Next year we're bringing out video and 360 video, and really be able to socialize that regardless of where you are in the world is the key thing. So really reducing distance, if you like, because the software works whether it works over 3G, 4G, or wireless, but it doesn't matter. I could be in Delhi, you could be in Los Angeles, you could be in Liverpool, and it feels like we're in the same room using VR as immersive technology. We have started working on augmented reality, which is sort of slightly different use case, and we hope to have our first app in the market next year. But again, that'll be focusing on really on communication and how can you use virtual characters and other form of digital content to engage with consumers in new and exciting ways. And the video we're going to show is a brief trailer that shows what the VR product looks like that's available today.
And the app is available in India as well.
Yeah, it's been available since day one in India, and is very popular, particularly on Android and the associated phones. And we're very interested at the moment. The reason we come to India is to investigate, who we could partner with to bring the app to the Indian market properly, if you like.
Yeah, and you were also talking about the applications in, say, a sporting event or those sort of events where there could be a shared experience as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The Indian, the cricket
Yes.
World Cup is next year in
Yeah.
England, so we're obviously, we've got our eye on that because we feel that would be a fantastic way to connect audiences in new
Great.
ways.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Can we have the VTime video on screen, please? Thanks for that. Really interesting in terms of going from underwater to outer space and everywhere in between. Sharad, you've developed quite a different sort of immersive experience. Could you tell us a bit about about virtual presence and what you guys do?
Hi, I'm Sharad from Virtual Presence in London. We've been working in the holographic industry for the last 10, 12 years. We set up Virtual Presence about 3.5 years ago with the idea to make holographic technology more accessible to the wider public. It's always been used for the big product launches and the big campaigns with the big brands with the bigger budgets, but now we're working with our close partners in India, for example, the LSOL, and developing ways to get the cost down and make it affordable for everyone to use across various industry sectors. Whether it's automotive, where we can save you space, or whether it is personalized greetings to every other way. The idea is to it is becoming more accessible for everyone. So. I think that's the smaller units we've done.
We've been seeing some images of the work that you've done, but there's also a video, I understand, Sharad?
Yes.
Can
these
we?
are, absolutely.
You can talk.
So these are the new product lines we've developed for the mobiles and tablets to get a more 3D experience. Scientific fact, 3D is more memorable, it works, and that makes it more engaging. And so that's on the smaller stuff. And the life-size holograms is where it is the icing on the cake. It looks really good and works really well. So we'll have a look at the video, some of the work we've done.
Thank you, but that mostly covers kind of your work in the corporate and retail sector. But you've also done lots in sort of political. Do you want to talk about your successful campaign in India, just briefly?
We helped your Prime Minister win the election, if I'm allowed to say that. So we did about the Modi election campaign. We did the Gujarat elections before, and he won those. And then we did the national ones. I think we did about 1,500 installations across the whole country, basically, over 30 days. 300 people working on ground, and my colleague looked after the entire campaign, so yeah.
And so you basically had PM Modi speaking in one location, and then 3D holographic projections.
So we had him in a studio in Ahmedabad or in New Delhi, and from there they were being done, being live using satellite because we can't get fiber. But now with 4G, 5G, and fiber, that becomes even better. With the newer units we're launching, again the cost comes down furthermore. Yeah.
More and more political parties are going to need you very, very soon.
Possibly.
I'm not going to say who and where. Talking about election campaigns, we have another one coming up next year. And Lyric, your innovation is going to play a crucial role this time. Can you tell us a bit about the work you're doing and logically as well? Yeah.
Absolutely. So primarily what we do is get human and artificial intelligence to collaborate and use that to detect misinformation, disinformation, and content likely to incite violence. So for the election specifically, where we're partnering with sort of global platforms, we're still in sort of design stages and are looking to include more Indian partners to tackle misinformation around the Indian election. So the way it would work would be quite simple, really. So we come in as an automation layer, but then there's still the need for a human newsroom that specializes in detecting misinformation. And based on the human newsroom, we build a layer of technology that basically cranks out more volume. So in theory, very simple, but a lot of complications involved in doing just that. Sort of our larger project that we work on is our consumer product. It directs ominous a direct-to-user product where we try and fit everything you need to know about a particular topic on one page. So we feel that most people either don't have the time, the interest, or the ability to get out there and verify every bit of information they encounter. There's just so much of it out there, and we kind of want to focus on making as much information accessible to as many people in as short a time frame as possible, and underneath that layer have a ton of verification, fact-checking, and content analysis technologies running, so that we give people meaningful information and not just sort of dribble. So I guess now would be a good time to walk through what we have.
Yep. Can we see the Logically video, please?
Oh, brilliant. Oh, this one doesn't have audio, so you're going to have to put up with me speaking over the video for a while. So the consumer product, it has some level of filtering involved on the feed. So we give the user the complete autonomy to control their feed. So whether they want to have sort of content that's slightly questionable, content that might be fake news or hate speech or sensationalist, they have the options to filter that out of their feed, or they can keep it there should they want it there for whatever reason, but we make sure that it's labeled just so that they get that additional context. The next page, the next sort of main feature where we worked on developing is the thing you should see next, hopefully, which is the story page. Okay, a couple more seconds and you'll see it. And this is the page where we look to build out everything you need to know about a story. So you have an objective headline, an objective summary, a bunch of narratives from different political, ideological, and emotional spectra, and a chronology of different events that have occurred leading up to that story. And finally, we have everyone associated with that story, so you can find out more about them. So what we see, we kind of follow this hierarchical approach to learning more about a particular topic. So if you just want a feed, yeah, that most people are satisfied with an objective headline, they know enough about a story. Others want to know a bit more about what's involved within the story, which is what the story page is for. And then finally, we're partnering with sort of publishers across the world so that their content, often premium publishers such as the FT, can be visible to users and made accessible for lower rates. So yeah, that's more or less us.
And you've just launched in India this morning as well.
Yes, we have. So that's what we see our consumer products as is a baseline foundation we can start introducing a lot of our cooler tech into. So there's a lot of features we're working on, such as getting two people from very different political views and very different ideological positions to interact, to try and conduct civil discourse, and finally arrange some kind of outcome. Either they disagree forever, or they have a new viewpoint of the world. It's kind of similar to work that we're also looking in parallel with the US State Department, because similar efforts have been used to reduce counterterrorism and violent extremism. So we feel a lot of it can benefit not just that space, but also the misinformation space and the political polarization space.
Thanks very much, Lyric.
All of the income streams that are open to them in the music industry. It's a common misconception that the music industry is booming, and so all the artists are doing really well. And the truth is, the music industry globally is growing stronger and stronger. But apart from the artists right at the top tier, a lot of the other artists are receiving less and less money. And that's not through any kind of deception, but it's actually because a lot of the times the artists don't actually know all of the income streams that are available to them. They don't realise that since there's been a move away from physical products, from CDs, vinyl, through to downloads, to streaming, that actually those revenues are very small in comparison to the revenues from publishing, from synchronization, from placing their music in film and television, and from live performance. So what Kycker does is we pull all those 4 separate income streams together through one portal, one sign up. An artist signs up with the Kycker platform. We've got APIs into all the major collection revenue streams. We've got a team of synchronization experts, and we can place people's music into film and TV and really allow people to actually generate as much money and receive as much money as is possible. And in terms of India, the Indian, I don't know whether you're aware, but the Indian music market is growing at a phenomenal rate. It's currently 19th in the world in terms of global revenue. In the next 2 years, that's set to be in the top 10 and just continue to grow. So we see India as a really key market, and that there's actually a huge. If you just get away from Bollywood and the artists that are connected to the film industry, there's a huge amount of independent artists in India as well, and the model will be the same for them to actually enable them to receive all the money that all the income that they could possibly receive. Would this be a good time to play the video?
Yep. Could we have the Kycker video, please?
It's in your hands. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. Buy ice packs of refuse, microwave meals, buy coastals and walks in time 2-for-1 deals, buy comfort, buy style, buy inflatable sex. Keep hounding your doctor for intentional checks. Buy green or organic, microbiome. Watch atlas that tell ya. Shopping's erotic. Shop savvy, shop smart. Try to get the right price. 5 quid for a whole one off. 3 quid for a slice. It's in your hands. 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 It's in your hands.
Thanks for that, Barry. And I mean, just the session that was running just before us was around intellectual property and the urgent need really for the music industry to find a way to monetize IP in every way that they can. So really timely what you're bringing to the market here and globally, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is the number one hot topic in the music industry. Yeah. It really is. I mean. There are ways to move forward with that, but it takes the industry to actually accept it en masse, and that's always the problem in the music industry.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see conversions soon. Thanks for that. My next question is around the dramatic shift that each of you saw once you'd adapted that new approach to the market and brought in that new technology. So again, Vivek, if I might start with you, you talked about implementing a virtual reality campaign for the first time with Mahindra Racing, but then you've gone on to use technologies with other brands within Mahindra as well.
Yeah, so, first of all, I think the video showed that the stats on that 360-degree VR video were very, very impactful, so we got more than 30 million views globally, very high completion rates, X times visits to the website and so on. So that made us think that, hey, this is really cool, this is working for us, why don't we take this into other areas? So following that video, I think 3 months after that video, we did another 360-degree VR video where we made one of our race drivers jump out of a plane and do a skydive in Berlin just before the Berlin race. And of course, some people said, are you sure he's got a race tomorrow and you're making him jump out of a plane? But that was again another piece of excellent engaging content that we put out. And again got good engagement and good feedback for us. And following that, now we moved beyond Mahindra Racing. So, we sponsor and we run music festivals in India. So we just did one music festival in Varanasi recently. And again, we've created a 360-degree VR video for that festival, and that video will be releasing shortly. So yeah, we have taken the same idea but in different applications. And again, in the Mahindra group, digital and technology is being used in many different ways. And for example, in the auto business, we've now brought the showroom home. So our customers, our potential customers, don't even have to reach the showroom. Our sales rep, customer rep can come home or to the customer's office with a mobile phone and actually do an immersive experience for the person, show that person the variants, the colors, and talk about the SUV that the person wants to buy. In tractors, in another industry completely, we are using digital and technology to help farmers identify the problems that happen with crops. There are different diseases that can happen with crops. So digital and tech is allowing us to identify those problems, and we help farmers identify not just the problem but also help them find the right solution to treat those crops, because sometimes it can be too late by the time he discovers what the problem is and finds the solution. So we do end to end. And similarly in finance and holidays and so on, all our businesses are using digital and tech in different ways.
That's really inspiring and definitely good news for all the immersive tech companies out there. If Mahindra is adopting it, I'm sure a lot more mainstream brands in India will start to do that soon as well. Natasha, what next after the e-scooter experiential campaign? I know you've been working with a few other brands as well.
Yeah, we have, as a digital experience studio, we are also having our own products, and our team is building our own proprietary technology, starting with motion tracking. So we're basically doing motion tracking in yoga, and trying to identify and classify 8.1 million yoga postures. So that is essentially going to be a personalized instructor, and that's to encourage the self practice, a home practice. That's going to be the future of wellness in what research that we have done so far, and yeah, we're really looking forward to that. We're and also as a studio where we have just 3 years old and kind of just getting into the industry, whether it is the retail industry, we're getting a lot of interest from college goers and design students and engineering students who want to work with us and want to work in this space, because they really want to experiment with the interactive technologies, and they see the applications that we have. It's a challenge that we kind of got this experience center to work with, and when they see that application, they're like, yeah, this is good, because all this while we've been working on our projects, and when we see this application going out there, we really want to work in that direction. So I think we're kind of creating that platform for a lot of college goers and freshly graduated who are looking into working into the space where you are bringing the engineering and design talent together. So yeah, that's the scope of our work.
Yoga and technology. You should be talking to our Prime Minister.
Hopefully in the future.
Shar, tell us about your work with brands, particularly in India. You have done a few campaigns here as well.
Yes, coming back to the whole idea of making
Yes.
it more affordable, we did. So let's start with the technology, with the automobile sector here.
Yeah.
We launched Lamborghini in India, $500,000 car. We presented it virtually, and they got a good result out of it. Likewise, with the smaller units, we rolled them out just before the Geneva Motor Show for Toyota for the new car launch. We rolled it out in 33 countries, things that were very costly before, but we made it very cost effective. And again, the way it's going, I see technology being more and more, people being more receptive to it with smartphones and everything else. There is a greater need for it being integrated in the society, and also with more content being demanded of them and the quality of content. Yes, we've got 4K TVs and all that coming, but then we need the content to drive it, and the costs have to come down to be able to make it, reach everywhere. So that's where we're going.
And you were talking about rather than having, real estate is really expensive, and so rather than having 100 cars on show,
Absolutely.
you could have, yeah.
So we've developed concepts, for example, a showroom of the future concept where you can come in and it's not just holographic technology, but it's incorporating other tech from VR to AR to projection mapping to RFID tags to all sorts of touch screens, so that you can create a life-size car in front of you. So in the space of one car, you can have entire range in every single color combination possible, because there's nothing worse than ordering a car and getting it after 6 months, waiting for the delivery, and you say, oh, that's not the right shit I ordered. So you can have it exactly the spec you want, see it inside out, put the VR headset with it, and see and get the experience of sitting inside it. And surrounding with all the weather conditions and all the key features and all the USBs, and let the brand ambassador be your personal person selling you on the day. So that personalized experience, saving you time, money, and giving you flexibility is the way forward.
Thanks very much, Sharad. Barry, you've seen a real shift in consumer behavior in the music industry. We all have. And that has had a massive impact on the industry. How is Kycker helping shape where that conversation within the industry goes?
I think basically for the last 100 years or so, the music industry's been pretty much at the forefront of a change in technology, because it's really easy to forget that 100 years ago the only way of exchanging music was written on paper, and then we eventually moved to vinyl records, and somehow we got to CDs, and then it was downloads, and then it was streaming. And at every point it's been this huge technological jump that no one ever saw coming before it. And the major labels are always incredibly resistant to it, because for the simple reason that they can't figure out a way of monetizing it. That's the only reason they're ever resistant. The minute the change from vinyl to CD, they resisted that massively, right up until the point that they realised that they could get people to buy the same records they already had on CD that they had on vinyl, because they were of different quality. The minute they realised they could monetize it, it was an accepted format. So for us, it's about just making everyone connected to Kycker as aware of all the new opportunities as much as possible as they come through. I've been talking to the guys today, and it's just there's so many new opportunities coming through. Just to give you an example, we've had artists who've moved across to Kycker who were existing artists, and their sales are up almost 200%, their revenue, just by moving across, because they've got better access to the revenue.
Great, thanks. And Clemens, you've kind of seen the content industry is just full of so much content, that it's now difficult to pick your way through some of that. Yeah. So tell us a bit about how that's impacted the, where the social media and immersive tech industry are going.
Okay, well, I think from our point of view, about 3 years ago, we were about a week away from launching the application into the market, and we were really gunning for the launch of the Gear VR, which was the first sort of piece of immersive consumer hardware reaching the market. And we had no idea how the software was going to be used once it reaches the market. We didn't have the luxury of time to do market research, because the market really wasn't there. So what we embarked on was, effectively launching a new product in a new market, which is incredibly difficult. But what was very surprising to us over the sort of last 3 years is to see and hear from users, anecdotally and sometimes through the data that we have, just the wide range of use cases of the software. So we've seen use cases of it in corporate, so for communication. We've seen use cases of it in healthcare, in providing therapy, music therapy, breathing exercises, things like that. And we've seen applications of it in education and remote learning and areas like that. A big part, of course, is entertainment. And socializing entertainment through immersive technology, we believe, is a very big part of how content is going to be enjoyed by consumers in the future. And really providing an application that is easy to use, accessible, and ideally free to use was a big stepping stone for us, and is something that we're looking to replicate on in augmented reality as well.
Thanks. And Lyric, I mean, there literally is like an explosion of the amount of information and news available out there, and picking your way through that can be really tricky, and logically offers an important solution to that. So, how is the work that you're doing with Logically going to kind of shape the industry in the coming months and years?
Sure. I guess what we can compare what's happening today to is something that happened back in, I guess, the 1600s, the advent of the printing press. The barrier to producing and disseminating information significantly dropped, which is kind of what's happened with the internet. Everyone's their own publisher, but not everyone's got the same responsibilities as a publisher. So what we see our role here is kind of being somewhat of the watchdogs, somewhat like a watchdog, but someone who sets standards and someone who is able to monitor the adherence of different publishers, different users to those standards. And I think that's probably large industry impact we're likely to have, introduction of certain standards and the ability to audit them. More broadly, I guess, coming to the overwhelming amount of information that's out there, I think that in part is the problem. Not only has the volume of information increased, the quality threshold we judge different bits of information to, that's a lot lower than previously. So we would have thought with increasing content, increasing competition, quality would have driven up, which it has in some cases in terms of how people experience different content. But in terms of particularly in news, there's a civic function news performs, and there's been a breakdown in terms of how, in terms of that quality, the quality of civic function that's being performed by news information.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to my final question. Predictions for the future. What do you expect to see in the next 5 to 10 years? Let's start with you, Barry. Music industry, as you've just captured in the previous question, has really just transformed from vinyl to digital music now. Where do you see the industry headed in the next 5 odd years?
I think that there's two elements really. I think one is protecting intellectual property, which you just touched on. Which, I mean, at the moment, the glaring way to do that is blockchain. But again, that's going to take a huge amount of uptake from a lot of the major players. But that would seem to be an obvious way of handling that. And then also, I think the immersive experience, the AR, the VR, is going to become, especially in a live setting, is going to become much more commonplace. It's going to become much more of a standard offering for smaller artists. So I mean, I think there's two different strands. I think, in simple terms, I think blockchain is the answer to the intellectual property question. But I think AR and VR are going to be a much bigger role in the music industry as well. Yeah,
immersive music events. Share the holograms are going to bring about some big changes in the live events industry, I guess.
Whether it's music industry, where you can have artists accessible that you couldn't otherwise, because there's only so many artists globally that you can actually get at any given time, and there are so many more venues around the world that you have to fill in, and there is just not enough time. So instead of having a full price ticket, you could have a half price ticket, and you could still get a very personal experience, a very 3D experience, and the technology we offer blurs the lines between 2D and 3D in terms of real and virtual. So in terms of from a theatre to a cinema, we kind of sit in the middle. So yes, music is one big sector. Good old days, we've done stuff for, let's say, Gangnam Style in Psy in Korea. $10 a ticket, 10 shows a day, every 30 minutes, so that works. Whether it's yoga, that's another one I've been working on with somebody else, I can't say, but to bring personalized instructors to every home or to every studio, whether it's celebrity endorsed or otherwise, and you can get to see yourself in 3D and compare where you've actually lost weight or not, or whatever it might be. Data visualization, again, whilst you're creating amazing data, we can make it even more engaging by turning it more 3D and floating in front of you, and that makes it much better. If it's pharmaceutical, we can bring doctors everywhere. So I think the ability to take in technology to receive data and to the content with a more enhanced user experience in 3D. And obviously AI, I'm a big fan myself. So you could be in multiple locations in virtual format, AI driven, and where people are skeptical about adapting to, AI's robots are going to take over the world. We can put a friendly face to that, that you could design yourself. So that works really well.
Thanks for that, Sharad. Lyric, you've been talking about that human versus AI, and that it doesn't always need to be a versus conversation, that it can be a working together conversation. So where do you see AI, news media, and its applications going in the future?
It's very varied, I guess. You can see potential two futures right now. There's almost this silent war going on right now, an information war, where we've got so-called bad actors on one side and so-called good actors on one side. I wouldn't simplify the argument that much, but that is the typical narrative. And AI is this kind of tool that can be used for good and can be used to profit in some ways that aren't always going to benefit society overall. But bringing in that human layer kind of brings in those checks and balances. It's again very similar to inspiration from defense technologies in terms of big US missile guided systems. Guess who controls them? A human at the end of every AI. Because there needs to be some level of responsibility that someone's head must roll if someone makes the wrong decision effectively, and that doesn't happen with AI. So AI alone, given the current frameworks that exist. So looking even further beyond the future, you could see this perfect utopia where everyone's super well informed thanks to AI, where everyone's personalized news feeds aren't causing filter bubbles and echo chambers, but they're actually making them well informed by giving them just the right amount of information. But then there's the dystopia as well, which might result in a lot more of the global effects we're seeing in terms of increasing polarization, increasing tribalism between people. Specifically in areas where AI is working in areas that impact society at large, I think a lot of people now within the industry feel it'd be good to have a human layer somewhere in there to offer those checks and balances.
Thank you, Lyric. Clemens, social media is only going to get more easily accessible with dropping data prices, as we've seen here in India and elsewhere. So interesting times ahead for you, and massive potential as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think from our point of view, we really see not sure whether it's the next 5 years, but certainly in the next 5 years, you will have major players like Apple entering the space and releasing their first wearable AR hardware, and we're really fundamentally believe that consumers and people in general are going to become increasingly aware of the severe limitations that traditional 2D flat displays represent, and are going to be increasingly demanding that immersive displays are going to be the primary form for them to enjoy the content. If you think of 2D displays, they're only ever going to be a window into another world. You're only ever looking at a window into somebody else's world, whether that's you using Skype or whether watching television. Through AR and VR, you can either bring that world to you with augmented reality, or you can immerse yourself entirely in that world. And I think once that really becomes a use case that people are repeatedly able to sample and see how easy it is to engage with it, where we want to go with our company and our software is ultimately we want to allow people to remap reality and change effectively what's happening in the world around them based on their own preferences and based on their own kind of preference with regard to the hardware that they use. And we think that's a multi-year journey. We're not quite sure when that's going to happen, but we're very certain it's going to happen, and we've got several steps to get there. But it's a very exciting future and one that we're driving very hard towards.
Thank you, Clemens. And Natasha, you're using real-time data to create a completely different, different experience. So where do you see data-led branding, going forward, and brands using that more and more?
Frankly speaking, we just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And sitting here in India, we're only starting to, just kind of get into the space and creating a mark with the technology. I mean, because we also come from a research background, so I mean, we keep researching in our labs and so much of stuff that you can do with technology, like holograms and AI, AR and VR. But we're also kind of, because we come from communication design, and I come from communication design background, so I feel like there is so much of medium that you can play around with. I mean, there's a lot of translations that you could do. So we are recently working with genomic scientists to translate that data into a new media space. So it's into brainstorming right now in ideation, and what we really want to essentially bring out about from that experience is a new learning and new insight that people should be awe with. I mean, people know about genomics, but there are other things that probably with their experience they could know more of. So yes, stuff like this that we are trying to build in collaboration with scientists to designers and engineers, all sorts of people, because everyone's like data driven and everyone is curious to kind of see data in a way where it is essentially what it is. And I think with the new media technologies, we have that power to translate that into cool stuff.
Cool stuff. Lots of cool stuff floating around, Vivek. Lots of different platforms, lots of cool technologies, new platforms and new tech coming up every day. How do you see Mahindra and other brands telling their stories in the future?
So, there are technology experts on this panel who will tell you about all the new technologies that are coming in. Whether it's blockchain or AI or VR, ER or whatever. I come at this from a different point of view. I come at this because I'm a brand custodian, I come at this from a consumer point of view. So
Yes.
As far as the consumer is concerned, anything that the consumer wants, I think technology will play a role to make it easier, better, and so on. So if I want information, technology will help information come to me in a much easier way, better way. If I want a better experience with the product or while testing the product, technology will solve that. If I want entertainment, technology will solve that. But I think the important thing for a brand marketeer is to always remember that context and relevance will remain important all through. Technologies will come, technologies will go. I mean, in India today, there are a couple of 100 million people on WhatsApp. Where was WhatsApp 5-6 years ago? There was no WhatsApp, but people were still communicating. So technologies will come, technologies will go. But I think the fundamentals of marketing, I think will remain. And therefore, please make sure that whatever you're doing with your consumers, it is relevant to that consumer. And reach out to that consumer in the right context is what I would say.
So that's a good note to end on. Some things will change completely, but some fundamental things will remain just the same. Thanks very much, all panelists, for being here and for the audience. Any questions from the audience? Do we have a couple of mics? There's one at the back, please. Could you please say who you are, where you're from, and who the question is for?
Sure. Thanks, panelists, for that engaging session. I'm Sonali Chandola. I lead the global marketing team at American Express. My question is to the entire panel, and it's on VR universes. So I think one of the reasons why the adoption of VR technology is still something finding space with consumers is because they don't get a connected experience across brands in VR. So for example, if someone would want to start a day with a time blur self-learn yoga session, and probably while listening to Kycker videos and audios, reading stuff from Logically, while chatting on VTime, looking through the Mahindra racing track, and ending their day at a virtual presence conference. So this kind of a connected experience, what do you think will it take for us as an industry to reach there and compel consumers to come to us and give them that connected experience? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for remembering all the panelists and what they do. Any of you would like to take that? Comments?
Okay, so just the amount of integration that I'm thinking of would be fantastic. But what a great question. So we try to tackle that in the first instance really by trying to be available in the first instance on whatever device consumers have. So I think it starts with availability, and I think it sort of ties into that sort of relevance really. You need to be on the correct sort of preferred device that people are using, whether that's their phone or whether that's a particular headset or whether that's their computer at home. And I think a lot of what you're talking about starts with relationships. Really it comes down to human interactions on a very basic level and building partnerships long term to find the common goal. And I think the sort of use case of where you're describing you find a perfect harmony between that many partners is, I think, possible, but is from a sort of audience point of view is going to take a while to really come together. VR certainly is taking some time to come to grow. In terms of the sort of mass consumer market. In gaming, I think it's on its way. Gaming has found a use for it, and that sort of thing is going ahead. Education and health are probably next up, I would say. And in augmented reality, though, we're already seeing another step change because people just feel, the sort of relevance and context is a lot more relatable because you still have the real world around you, and being fully immersed isn't really for everybody at this point. But in the future, we think so.
But that question is really a call to the industry to kind of come together and work together to offer a connected solution. Sharon?
So I think it's education of what is the art of the possible for the general public. They don't know what they can do with technology. It's like getting the latest iPhone and saying, what apps are available, what can I do with it? So education is a starting point. The next level is, I guess, what we need is cost. Not everyone could afford it potentially. I guess the headsets could be expensive or the tickets to the events could be expensive. So making the ways that we can get the costs down, and that's important. Also availability, so depending on where they are. So let's say 5G or 4G is kind of already helping live streaming, which didn't exist before. Whether it's 3D or 2D, but that didn't exist before. That helps. For example, so those are the key elements in terms of what can they do, what can, the availability of the tools that are at hand, and that's, I think, that will help going forward.
One last question, we'll then have to wrap up. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Mani Trivedi. I have a creative technology enabled company.
Sorry, do you mind holding the mic?
Is that better?
Yes,
Can you hear
that's
me?
better. Thank you.
Mani Trivedi. I have a tech-enabled creative company. My question is slightly different in that I see my son completely addicted to Fortnite, and my daughter's WhatsApping and snapping and Insta thingying, and I worry that it's great in theory, all this connectivity. I mean, it sounds amazing. You can, as the lady said, you can go to a conference, you can do your yoga, you can ride a great car, you can do all of these things. But what about the human, eye contact? The great thing about coming to these conferences is actually the tea breaks when you meet people. And I think that is something that really has to be looked at, because we're humans and humans need human interaction. So how do you...
Yeah, I think great question, and I think what I would say is what we've actually seen in the real world is the use cases for our software is what surprised us the most. So on a personal level, the single mom who can't go out and socialize because the children are at home in the evening and they're asleep, and so using our software, it feels like they can still meet new people, and if they're particularly extrovert and like meeting new people, then that was something that they weren't able to do before. People use our software to combat loneliness. People use our software when they're bedridden. They can't get out of bed, but they still find a way to communicate. And the avatars for us are key. So the avatars driven by the software can be very lifelike. Eventually, avatars will appear photorealistic. Arguably, the holograms already are looking like real people. So I think technology eventually will bridge that gap and make it feel, but real human-to-human interaction, I think we're some time away from being able to replicate that with technology, and it's always going to be a fundamental building block of what makes us human.
I just want to add to that, and this in a way answers the earlier question as well. I think technology is an enabler at the hands of human beings. So technology is not the master. The master is the human being. So we control how much of technology we want to bring into our lives. So yes, I use technology all the time, but I love to have a cup of tea with my wife in the morning or go for a walk with her in the evening. So that's in my hands. And I don't think there are people who want, like she said, somebody who wants to do this and this and this and this. There'll be very few people. Some people will want to do one or two of these things. Some people will want to do one or two of these things. There are very few people who want to do everything. So I think it's a matter of consumer choice. So you decide how much technology you want to bring into your life.
The only thing I'd like to add to that would be particularly, I guess, on the point of addiction you mentioned on social media. I think it comes in part from mixed incentives. Multi-sided platforms are a great business model innovation, tremendous at making a boatload of money. But what that leads to is mixed incentives. Sort of, if you're not paying for a product or a service, why should a business service your interests ahead of their actual customers while paying for certain services? So it results in this dynamic where a user of a product isn't the customer of the product. You are the product. And it's sort of until we have a restructuring of some of those incentives, which I think work towards that is commencing now with work around privacy protection, data protections, etc. But we need a lot more of that if we're ever going to get around sort of big tech in particular not paying enough attention to sort of societal impacts of some of technology. So.
Can I just add in?
Yes.
Yeah, I think actually that's a really good point, because so many people look at things like Facebook and Twitter, and they have such a problem with them wanting to monetize their data, but it's like they've never considered why they exist. It's like it obviously costs money for Facebook and Twitter to exist. So yeah, you're right. You are the product. And I think there is a degree of naivete that I think people will overcome, because I think as this argument regarding privacy becomes more and more prevalent, I think people will go, well, actually, yeah, I am the product, and so if I don't want to be in that role, then I won't use those services.
Thanks so much. Thanks for those great questions. We do unfortunately have to wicket the stage at this point, but all the panelists will be available to chat if you had any further questions. Thanks very much, guys, for joining, and have a good evening.